All right. Is this live? Is this working? Can you guys hear me? Everything good to go? In the chat, give me a one if you can hear me or whatever things that streamers do. But yeah, this is going to be a really low key stream. I just wanted to kind of uh, work together to try to point out some of the things that I feel like are uh, maybe. Oh, come on, phone. Don't do that to me. Ignore that. It's probably nobody. Someone upstairs will get it. So this is going to be super low key. I'm just going to look really close. Now, this artwork that I've got here is very large. And the reason I picked it, even though it's outdated, is that it's very large. Let me show you briefly just how large it is. Is that large enough for you? Is this good? Is this adequate? Okay. So I'm going to be showing you guys some of the big discrepancies that I think are kind of hard to ignore. And I talked about this in my Leakbuster video. If you didn't watch it, that's okay. But uh, I just wanted to talk about this. And now I put a great deal of effort into making sure that these line up as closely as possible. So we're going to see the clouds are lining up pretty well. We've got some hills right here that are lining up pretty well. Oh, I should do that in white. We've got, and then we've got the Grinch leak. So I feel like this should be a pretty strong comparison to do. So let's just take a look at some things. So the big things that I think are kind of telling are this waterfall here, right here, this big old thing, and then this section, this section, this section, some of the clouds around here, some of the stuff around here. There's a lot of stuff that changes pretty significantly. Now, if you're wondering where I got this empty version of it, this comes from E3. On the show floor, there was a display that would show the background briefly, and then the characters would kind of gradient in, for the lack of a better term. So for a brief moment, they had the screen in full view. If you look at day 2 on Nintendo's on the Nintendo official E3 stream, look at day 2 at 4 hours, 58 minutes, and 12 seconds, you'll be able to see this on screen. Now, this is perspective corrected, but I tried to match it as closely as possible. So before we go too far into it, I do want to see what you guys are saying right now. Let's see. Somebody say it's too big. Hi, Yan and Tice. All right, so let's just jump in. Now, there is one large assumption being made, and that's that the background here in this banner has not changed in the official banner since E3. And I think that's a fairly safe assumption, but it is an assumption, so I want to kind of give that disclaimer. But if we look at one of the big discrepancies here with this waterfall in the background, you can see a pretty big difference between that and that, right? Like this entire section is missing in the Grinch leak. And it's not like this is a case where the banner version of the background is different from the one at E3. I don't think that's the case, because if you look at the one at E3, right between Ike and Bowser's leg, you can see the remnant of that portion of the waterfall. So it's definitely there. It should be there, and it's not really the way it should be in the Grinch leak. There should be this island thing going on right there, and it's really not there, and that's really telling to me. But I don't know. This is, again, kind of circumstantial. It runs on a very large assumption that the banner artwork background has not changed since then, and I think that's a pretty safe assumption, like I said. But this is another part right here where that's kind of weird. There's a set of clouds over here that I think is weird as well, this part right here, and part of it was covered by Bowser's flame, so we kind of had to assume that, let's say that it's fake for a second. If someone had to paint this back in, they don't know what's going on behind that flame, so what are they going to do? It doesn't quite line up for me. So again, this is definitely nitpicking, but yeah, 7.8 out of 10. Too much water. There's not that much water, guys. It's just a waterfall on a cliffside. Now, I haven't kept up super well with any developments that have happened today. I've been kind of busy. So I don't know if there's anything to say. I did see that there's that company that the guy worked for back in 2016 made a statement in French, and that was translated. And basically, the gist is that that isn't supposed to be the company that is responsible for this leak, presuming that it's a real leak. Behind Pikachu, there's an ice crystal. What are you talking about? Let's see. Okay. So there's that. Ooh, behind Zelda, by the way. Look at this. They didn't know what to do. So this entire section behind Zelda, it's a complete mystery because they don't know what has to happen here, right? Presuming that it's a fake leak. So they fill it in. How? They just kind of run a diagonal in this direction. But it really should be more than that. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you would never know about if you didn't know about this particular banner. So there's another thing. Grinch confirms it 100%. No one talks about that. Okay, so are you saying that because there's a Grinch render that it has to be real? Okay, the Grinch render being real does not preclude the possibility that the Smash art could still be fake. Like, let's say that this person works at a print shop that's actually working on Grinch material, and then on top of that, just plops down a sheet of paper with some Smash stuff that's fake. Is that an impossible scenario? Like, I don't really see the logic there. Will this live stream be on YouTube afterwards? Probably. Yeah, I don't see why not. I feel like this is a useful exercise, so I'm gonna leave it up if it seems like it's actually constructive. Omni, the background has already changed since E3. I don't necessarily find that it's impossible that's the case, but I haven't seen an instance of that. If you could link me to a comparison, then that would be nice. Or maybe just, okay, so apparently it's on the website. I could take a look at the website version, but let's see here. The website version is difficult because the version, like this banner that we're looking at on Photoshop right now, is not the same character arrangement as the one that gets put on the website. Even at E3, like even back when E3 was taking place, the version on the website had different character positions from the one that was given to the media, because the one on the website has to be seamless, and the one that's given to the media has margins on the right and left. So they didn't want this particular gap right here and here to exist on the website, so they closed it by moving some of the characters over a little bit. And because the background was designed to loop seamlessly, and I could demonstrate that if you want, but like if we take this background and then drag this over here, da-da-da. So that's how the background works. That's why the website can loop the way it does. But anyway, I'm looking at the website banner right now. It's kind of hard because I have to wait for it. But I mean, I'm waiting for the waterfall section to appear. This is going to take forever. There's Snake. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the version in Photoshop while I'm waiting. All right, so right now I'm looking at it, and on the website we're about here. Oops, wrong layer. So I'm still waiting. Come on. Ike is next to Bowser now. I mean, it's still impossible to see whether or not this is still the same on the website. Like, there's still too much stuff in front of it. In fact, there's more stuff in front of it now. Inspect it. I don't want to do that work right now. It's too much work because it's in pieces. I'd have to piece it together. Oh, whatever. I'll do it. But I mean, you guys are welcome to pull up. You know, I can just do a quick screenshot too. That's probably faster. Close inspector. Just for the sake of comparison. Let's get rid of that circle. Get rid of it. What's happening? Did I write it on the wrong one? I guess I did. All right. So this is what I screenshotted. It's very small compared to this, but let's see, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? So I'm at the wrong scale right now, I think, but let's see if I can line it up. Let's go ahead and put in a difference, and then this part's the same. Where am I going right now? Right there? Is that what I want? No, not quite. It's more like that. Nope, I went too far. And then this has got to come in. That's pretty close. Let's get a little closer to it. I'm going to be very picky about the alignment here because I don't want any room for doubt. I think that's good enough. All right, so again, impossible to say whether or not that waterfall is still there. But we definitely have this thing here. Look at this. That crystal is there. That isn't in the Grinch leak. This guy. I'm talking about this guy. So I don't know, you guys. I'm really just trying to present, you know, the evidence, and I'll let you interpret it how you want. I'm not trying to tell you what to think. But the kinds of changes that are there between this and this, I don't think they're reasonable. Like, some of them make no sense. Like, what's this blob here doing that wasn't there in the original? Anywho, any interesting conclusions drawn from this yet? I mean, there's not really any definitive conclusions that you can draw from this, just that there is a discrepancy between the one in the leak and the one in at least the banner from E3 2018. And as far as I can tell, I mean, I've only done one comparison on a section of the banner, but the background isn't changing. Like, it's entirely consistent. I don't see any differences in all of the spots that I can see through between the characters. There's no differences. It's even the tiniest details, like this tiny cloud right here. It's perfectly well represented. There's been no differences in the version on the website and the version from E3 in June and the version on the show floor. Like, I don't know. This is pretty convincing for me. I am leaning much more on the side of fake now than I was before. So that's just my opinion. Leak nitpicker. That's my job. The crystal is there. What are you talking about? The crystal is there. Are you seeing what I'm seeing here? I feel like... Okay, are you insinuating that this blob of somewhat bluer color is supposed to be that crystal. Like this right here. Let me do a comparison because the ones over here should be a more telling example. Like these crystals, the color contrast, well, I guess it's not quite the same. But I mean, this blue here should be, well, it's gone too. I'm trying to find a similar blue that we can compare so that we can leave no doubt. These blues are probably the closest comparison, so that's that should represent how a blue should convert into CMYK. And I mean, this is missing. I don't know, you guys. I mean, we see what we want to see, right? Like, there's a lot of confirmation bias, obviously. I'm perfectly susceptible to that same bias. It's not just the fact that it's a Snapchat. Like, just because something is on Snapchat doesn't mean that large details, like broad macro details, would be changing. Things like this collection of pretty high contrast white to darker gray, that's not going to get lost just because you're taking a Snapchat photo or a video. A lot of this stuff here, there's no way that Snapchat is going to cause that large of a change. There's absolutely no way. Like, I create graphics for a living. I constantly deal with people who take photos on their phones versus people who take photos with DSLRs. I have a pretty good idea of what kind of things would change between a crap video encoding and a good photo. That's just, anecdotal, but I feel like it carries a little bit of weight. Could it be due to video smear on Snapchat? Oh wait, so what I'm comparing right now is not, it's not something that was stitched together. It was just a singular photo. It was the one on the left with the big LOL with the laughing guy emoji. And that was not something that was stitched together. In fact, I think it was just a still photo, but I'm not really sure. Because it was like three different things. It was like the thing with the LOL on the left, then the wristband on the right, and then the character banner on the bottom with all of the characters. And I'm not really clear on which sections of that were from video and which ones are from photo, but do you not think that it's possible that they changed the background from E3 to now? It's obviously possible that these kind of changes could have been made by the artists, but the operative question is, why would they make some of these changes? They look worse than what they had before, and there's no function. See, when you're going to make a change to concept art, there needs to be a functional reason for you to change it. Like when they made the change from Peach and Bowser in that Mario Odyssey shot when they're in the heart and Peach is wearing the tiara, and then they changed it later on and added the tiara character to her head and changed her pose so that she's crossing her arms and looking kind of angry at Bowser. That's a functional change. It's not just like some weird instance where there's a discrepancy. It's a purposeful, deliberate change that was made for a reason. None of these changes, presuming that they're actually changes and not mistakes, none of them make sense. They don't make any logical, rational sense. You wouldn't just get rid of a piece of the waterfall and then, not try to correct how it would exist in 3D space in the real world. Like this, the way that this is cut off doesn't actually make sense for the geography, for the topography, whatever the word is, of how the waterfall would be flowing on that island. It doesn't make any sense. The Raymond leak. What's that? I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's the thing. If all of the changes are exclusively things that are obstructed by the characters before, that can't just be a coincidence. Now, if something changed in an area where there was already things showing, right? Then I'd be more inclined to say, okay, so they've been in the background in small ways. But it's only ever happening where there was a character that had to be presumably painted out. That I don't think that coincidence could be overlooked. Okay, the diagonal lines. Someone mentioned the diagonal lines. Let me explain what's going on right now. These diagonal lines are not from Snapchat. These diagonal lines are from me running a very, very significant perspective correction on the entire image, because this image is 21,000 pixels wide. Let that sink in. 21,000 pixels wide. So I had to scale this image up and stretch it like crazy. I'm talking about like I had to grab one side and make it like 3 times the length that it was before. Like there was a lot of distortion that had to be done to this image to make it line up with the real banner. So that's why you're seeing these diagonal lines that are going like all over the place through this image. That's from the perspective correction that wasn't actually present in the source image. Let's say it's fake. How long and elaborate do you think it took to make? I don't know, a few hours. Painting this out would have probably been the most time-consuming part, and that would have probably taken a few hours to do. The characters, if they were sort of rushed, like painted sort of half-heartedly into the shot, just so that that would hold up from a distance with a bad camera, then they wouldn't necessarily have to make like each individual character that they added look super great under scrutiny. They just have to make it look good enough from the distance. The Snapchat pictures were screenshots from a Snapchat video. Yes. I'm aware that this was a Snapchat video. You don't have to tell me this. Now, I'm telling you, despite the fact that it's a screenshot from a video, the differences that you see between this and this should not occur. This area here, where there's light coming through this cloud, there's light coming through, right? This doesn't make any sense. The way that it's connecting here, nothing about Snapchat or video encoding would cause that to happen. It looks like they just didn't know what to do because there were characters there, and so they had to make an assumption. Is that... Am I making sense? Am I crazy? I feel like I'm going crazy right now. People, let me know if you think that I'm, like, talking out of my butt or something. I don't know. I feel like this is pretty compelling. Now, I'm not saying that because of this one piece of evidence that you have to, like, reverse your line of thinking. No, I'm just trying to present this evidence in a way that is as objective as possible. And I feel like I'm being pretty objective, other than the fact that I am stating my particular interpretation. But I feel like the observations that you can make from this comparison, you know, you can do whatever you want with them. Did the background move around in the E3 show floor? No, it did not. The background was a still shot, and then they revealed the characters in sort of like a expanding from the center kind of fashion, but the background itself wasn't moving. You make sense, but the main argument against your point is that it's possible that the background design simply changed with development. Again, I've addressed that it's possible that the background has changed, but I don't think we can overlook the fact that the background has only changed in spots where there were characters previously obstructing the background, and all of the changes that were made, presuming that they're changes, do nothing to improve the composition, do nothing to have any sort of function for how the banner is used. They're just arbitrary changes that are conveniently always behind the characters. That's what's happening. What percentage do I think this is a fake? I hate making percentages. Percentages are so arbitrary. I'm personally 70-30, 80-20 in the direction of fake. I mean, there's a reason I only made this half an hour stream, because I'm just gonna end up going in circles if I make it any longer. But so I figure I've pretty much said everything that I have to say about this. What I'll probably do is actually make this PSD available for people to download. So if they want to do their own comparisons, they can do that. Make your own GIFs, whatever. I'm just trying to sort of contextualize the differences. What if the leak is true but the artwork is fake? So are you saying, what if the characters are actually in the game but this particular leak just coincidentally covers the same characters? I mean, that's certainly a possibility. Would I be satisfied with this roster if it was real? Yeah, of course. I mean, they're all characters that I think would be great in Smash. I mean, I think most characters would be fun in Smash. There's not a lot of characters that I would actively vote against. So I do think it's silly that a lot of people are trying to source the renders from elsewhere on the internet for the characters. I don't think they're based on existing renders, or rather, I don't think they're just straight up, copies of existing renders that were just plopped into the image. I think there was some amount of effort put into making the characters' poses different from what we've seen. Even if it is a paint over, again, it's hard to tell because it's such a bad photo that anything would have probably sufficed, Uh, what about other parts of the leak, like the Chadendorf and Brightcard thing? I'm not going to really talk about any other aspects of the leak in this video. I've talked about them in the other videos, so this is really just about the comparison. I could attempt to go into detail about those, but I feel like it's just going to be a waste of time. Since all the other people have already talked about it, I've talked about it on Twitter. I don't want to go around in circles. What do I think of Papagino's newest video? Are you talking about the one where he had a source that was talking about Incineroar? I never know what to think about people who say that they have sources, because you kind of have to just take their word for it. And I'm not really into doing that, so I just kind of avoid those kinds of, theories or rumors. Why do you think so many insiders claiming it's definitely fake? Well, if they're actually insiders and they actually know what characters are coming, then they would have the knowledge with which to make that kind of conclusion. So if they're really insiders and they're really confident about the fact that this is fake, then I would probably trust them. But again, who can you really trust to be real insiders these days? I don't know how many of these people that are in the chat right now have been watching this from the start to the finish, so I don't know if all of the comparisons that I've been making have been seen. I guess I could really quickly summarize them before I end the stream, but basically things like this waterfall. Well, first let me establish some presuppositions. So one presupposition is that the background in this artwork is the same as this, right? And I feel like every spot I've checked, and I've checked pretty thoroughly, everything lines up perfectly. So let's just go with that. The other presupposition is that the background hasn't been changed by the artists at Nintendo or at Bandai Namco since E3. And I feel like that's a pretty safe assumption, because there's no reason to change the background, because all they have to do is rearrange the characters, their positions, their scale, all of that. So there's no reason to touch the background. So if it's changed, then it's weirdly convenient that all of the changes are in sections where the background was previously obstructed by the characters. So that's another presupposition. I don't know, guys. I'll make this PSD available if you want to make your own comparisons, if you want to look at it up close on your own terms. I'll definitely encourage you to do that. For now, I think I'm just going to end the stream. I appreciate you guys coming by, honestly. It's been a pretty interesting comparison to make. I've liked reading all of your thoughts in the chat, so let me know, if this was helpful at all. I feel like I'm sort of flustered at this point, but hopefully this has been constructive, profitable, useful, beneficial. But that's it, guys. So thanks for stopping by. Believe what you want. I'm not here to tell you what you should think, but I'm currently on the side of team fake or team probably fake. I don't want to sound so definitive with it because really it's hard to make any sort of definitive conclusions. So that's all for this one, guys. I guess I'll let me know if this was a good format too. This is the first time I've done a Leakbuster live thing. I made all of the assets for this like right before I started this. So if this is something that you think I should do, I've been thinking maybe I should do more of these like live analyses of leaks rather than doing like these pre-produced videos, because they're honestly, a live stream is a lot easier to put together than something that I have to edit. So if you think this was a good sort of format, let me know, and I'll talk to you guys on Twitter. Let me know if there's any other developments, and I'll see you guys later.